Welcome back to High Stakes. Elevate your betting game by hitting that subscribe button and never miss out on our daily content. Want exclusive access to premium betting picks? Join our Patreon. Links waiting for you in the comment section below. Stay ahead of the game with High Stakes. Northwestern versus Maryland. Billy Edwards Jr. has been quietly building a resume that could soon demand national attention. With an impressive 1,444 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, and a sharp 72.3% completion rate, he's primed to torch Northwestern's vulnerable defense. The Wildcats are reeling, having given up a whopping 83 points over their last two Big Ten matchups and surrendering 529 yards in their loss to Indiana. To make matters worse, Northwestern's defense has been a no-show, failing to apply any meaningful pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Exactly the kind of breakdown that a dual threat like Edwards will exploit. Maryland's passing attack is among the best in the FBS, and Northwestern's secondary seems helpless to stop it. Combine that with a Wildcat rushing game that's barely limping along, just 152 yards on 48 carries over their two conference games, and you've got a recipe for disaster. Even with Cam Porter potentially available, his recent 15-yard performance against Indiana doesn't exactly strike fear into opponents. Northwestern will be leaning heavily on Brendan Sullivan, but asking him to carry the offense against a rested Maryland defense is a tall order. And sure, Maryland's defense gave up 42 points in their last game, but forcing 4 turnovers shows they can turn up the heat when needed. Prediction: Maryland Terrapins roll, covering the minus 10.5 spread with ease. Despite Northwestern's defensive struggles, their offense has started to show some sparks of life. Jack Lausch is coming off a promising performance against Indiana, throwing for 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He's clearly gaining confidence and starting to establish a rhythm, and if the Wildcats can replicate their success in the air like last week, they'll be in a position to contribute heavily to the scoreboard. Northwestern managed 24 points against Indiana, and though they've struggled to finish drives at times, Maryland's defense, particularly against the pass, has shown vulnerabilities that Lausch can exploit. The Wildcats need to hover around the 20-point mark again, and with Maryland's offense ready to do the heavy lifting, the over 45.5 points is definitely within reach. Maryland is equipped to torch Northwestern's defense, but with Northwestern also capable of putting up some points, this has the makings of a high-scoring affair. Both teams are coming off tough losses to Indiana, and both are desperate to notch their first Big Ten win. This sense of urgency on both sides should translate into aggressive play calling, which often means one thing: points. Prediction: over 45.5 points. UNLV versus Utah State. Hajmalik Williams has been nothing short of electric, both through the air and on the ground, and the Rebels haven't missed a beat since losing Matthew Sluka to the nil frenzy. Williams is operating at an elite level, completing a jaw-dropping 82.9% of his passes and tearing up defenses with 7.6 yards per carry. Now he gets to face off against one of the worst defenses in the country, a dream scenario for a dual-threat quarterback of his caliber. The gap between these two teams is glaring. In their last matchup in 2022, UNLV marched into enemy territory and secured a convincing 34-24 road win. Fast forward to now, and the disparity is even more pronounced. The Rebels are red-hot at 4-1 against the spread ATS, while the Aggies are floundering at a miserable 1-4 ATS. This isn't just a matchup, it's a mismatch. When you factor in Williams' dominance and the Aggies' defensive woes, it's hard to see this game staying close. The smart money is on UNLV to cover the minus 18.5 spread with ease. Expect a statement win from the Rebels. Prediction: UNLV minus 18.5 points. Both of these offenses have been lighting up the scoreboard lately, making the over a tempting play. The Rebels are absolutely on fire, averaging a staggering 48.8 points over their last 4 games, while the Aggies have held their own, putting up 26.7 points in their last 3 outings. Even with Spencer Petras dealing with some injury issues, he still managed to torch Boise State's defense with 372 yards and 3 touchdowns. That shows he can still sling it, and both teams should move the ball well enough to keep the chains moving all night. With these offenses humming, we might see very few punts. The trend favors the over 2. UNLV has hit the over in 8 of their last 12 games, and Utah State has done it in 5 of their previous 7 home games. All signs point to a high-scoring affair that blows past the 65.5-point total. Prediction: take the over 65.5 points. Expect fireworks. Utah versus Arizona State. Before Cam Rising's injury in Week 2, Utah's offense looked every bit as explosive as the preseason hype suggested. In less than 4 quarters, Rising lit up Baylor's defense, throwing for 346 yards and 7 touchdowns, setting the tone for what many believed would be a dominant season. However, Rising's absence has thrown the offense into a state of flux. Freshman Isaac Wilson, while stepping up admirably, has faced the inevitable growing pains that come with being thrust into the spotlight so early. With a 2-1 record as a starter, Wilson has shown flashes of brilliance, but inconsistency in the red zone, turnovers, and a lack of a reliable secondary running back to support senior standout Micah Bernard have created hurdles for the Utes. Utah's defense, however, remains its backbone. Defensive coordinator Morgan Scalley has built a unit that has yet to allow more than 23 points in a game, despite dealing with injuries to key players like linebacker Kareem Reed and defensive end Connor O'Toole. The likes of Van Fillinger and Junior Tafuna have stepped up, ensuring the Utes remain a defensive force. It's been Utah's defense that has kept them competitive, buying time for the offense to find its groove in Rising's absence. On the offensive side, Utah has never had a problem in the run game. While the team initially planned a running back by committee approach, Micah Bernard quickly asserted himself as the go-to guy. Bernard has rattled off 3 consecutive 100-yard games, including a jaw-dropping 182-yard performance against Oklahoma State, and currently ranks 14th nationally in rushing yards per game. His physical running style, exemplified by a 64-yard bulldozer run against Utah State, has been a highlight of Utah's season. However, the lack of a complementary back has put strain on Bernard, as head coach Kyle Whittingham looks to balance his workload, aiming for 20 to 25 carries per game. As for the quarterback situation, Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham has his hands full preparing for either of Utah's potential starters. Rising, a preseason Heisman candidate, has been sidelined since Week 2 with a finger injury, though he has been a game-time decision multiple times. Meanwhile, Wilson, a top 300 recruit, has shown flashes of potential, throwing for over 200 yards in each of his starts. However, his last 2 outings have been rocky, with 2 interceptions and 1 touchdown in each. Rising, when healthy, is easily the most seasoned and dangerous quarterback the Sun Devils have faced all year. But Wilson, despite his struggles, has a high ceiling that could catch opponents off guard. Dillingham knows his defense will need to be ready for either scenario, but one thing is clear. If Rising returns, Utah's offense takes on an entirely different dynamic. The Sun Devils will have their work cut out as the Utes aim to get back on track, whether with their freshman phenom or their Heisman hopeful at the helm. Utah's offense has been noticeably off-kilter without Cam Rising at the helm, and it's starting to show in key areas. While the defense continues to carry the team, the offense has hit roadblocks in both the passing and rushing games. Freshman quarterback Isaac Wilson, while talented, is still finding his way under intense pressure. His 7 interceptions in just 3 games as a starter highlight the growing pains of stepping into such a critical role early in his career. Opposing defenses have been relentless, blitzing him on 43.5% of his dropbacks, and while Wilson has shown flashes of poise, the pressure has exposed inconsistencies in his decision-making, particularly in the red zone. This has directly contributed to Utah's number 87 ranking in red zone scoring, an alarming stat for a team that typically thrives in crunch moments. The offensive struggles in converting crucial opportunities could spell trouble against an Arizona State defense that has quietly improved throughout the season. Defensive coordinator Brian Ward has crafted a unit that limits explosive plays and pressures opposing quarterbacks, a nightmare matchup for an inexperienced Wilson. On the flip side, Arizona State may not have the flashiest offense, but they've steadily improved, especially defensively, where they've been able to generate pressure and force mistakes. Utah's struggles in pass protection play right into ASU's strength, which could lead to turnovers and opportunities for the Sun Devils to keep this game within reach. Though Utah is favored by 6 points, their offensive issues, combined with Arizona State's disruptive defense, could make it difficult for them to cover the spread. Prediction: Arizona State Sun Devils plus 6 points. Expect a closer game than the spread suggests. Also take the under 45.5 points.